Hello, can I?
You better mute the.
Hello, hi. Can everyone hear me?
Everybody's microphones disabled there.
Oh,
Oops, now coming through your screen.
hello. Can everyone hear me okay? Does this work?
There we go.
That looks okay.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I think we can. Mike's disabled. I'm not recording this just yet, thankfully. I don't think I. Welcome everyone. I hope everyone's well. I'm just going to double check a few things because we're using a different computer today. So I'm just going to get things set up. Let's just double check we've got everyone here. It should be here. Okay. Okay, let's get started. So everyone can hear me. Hopefully, I'm going to share my screen in a second. Okay, I think we're good to go. So if I just start the recording. Oh,
It is being automatically there.
Yeah.
The red lights on at the top left.
okay. I'm still getting used to Teams. Okay, medicine available. So everything's been done. Apologies, everyone. It's been a 2 seconds. It's just a problem, isn't it? Put it on that. Right, I'm going to share my screen in a second. You can see my screen, so I'm putting presentation mode, and then we'll get started. Apologies, there's been a few technical hitches as I work my way through the CQI HQ. So we're actually broadcasting live from CQI HQ today. It's one of our Audit SIG catch-ups or away days, and we'll talk about that later on. But the purpose of this session is for our AGM, and I do apologise for the mishaps at the beginning of this session, but we're ready to go, and we have a packed agenda. I do want to start the AGM just on a kind of, I'm going to stop the presentation mode because it keeps going through the things, but hopefully you can see my slide deck. I'm going to start with just, unfortunately, since our last AGM, we've lost one of our core founding members, Adrian Barry Stokes. Adrian was with us on our very first day when we created the SIG 3 years ago, but unfortunately passed away earlier this year. And I want to take a moment to remember Adrian and the positive contribution he made to our SIG. He was a wonderful human being. He's missed deeply from the whole team, myself, the wider team, the wider committee, and the wider CQI. And I just want to take a minute to remember Adrian. Okay, so we'll want to move on and talk about the recap with the mission statement. So when we started out 3 years ago, we're still relatively a new special interest group within the CQI. And we came up with a very clear message about what we're about in terms of an identity or a brand. So in terms of what we're about, we're very much promoting a diverse and inclusive environment where we have an established global committee with really one kind of purpose, is to collaborate and offer this kind of platform of expertise where we can influence and support our global audit communities. The SIG that we've established, the team that we've got, is very proactive and modern as we strive to coach, share lessons, and continually deliver for our value for our membership and partners. So basically what we're trying to do and continue to promote is this whole fact that we're a global team. Audit has no boundaries in the way we work, the messaging that we portray, and this has been with us since the day we started, and this still is the case as we move forward as well. And it's very much our mission statement, what we're all about. And if we take that further into our objectives, so what is it we're trying to do? What is it we're trying to deliver as a team of volunteers? So we do have a kind of focus on changing the perception of audit to one of positivity and a tool for driving that improvement. And we do that through different ways, through different discussions, and we'll share more of those messages today. We create this hub for collaborative learning and sharing knowledge. So we have a collective base from around the world, every continent represented on our team, where people, where the team members from all different backgrounds come along and share their experiences, their practices, their different industry learnings. And we just have this team of global audit professionals trying to do the right thing. And this is why we established the SIG, essentially, to have this reliable source of information that people can, trust and recognize through, through our different social medias without fear, bias, or even geographical location. We're all about promoting and raising awareness of management system standards. We always have that bias back to quality and management systems, but I'm very clear, and we're very clear as a team that, and I've said it already, that audit has no boundaries within this special interest group. And that is, we're even discussing it again this morning at our away day, and that will continue to thrive through our messaging. So we encourage auditors from any background, anywhere in the world, to contribute and get involved. And we'll talk about how you can do that later in the AGM as well. Enhancing the status of auditors across disciplines for the value they add to the business and industry, and identifying these opportunities to drive improvement. So, things change, especially in the modern way of business, very quickly, very rapidly. And it's our job to make sure we keep up with those changes, and especially when it comes to looking at new ways of doing things more efficiently and more effectively. And everything we do is always aligned back to the CQI strategy. So there's 4 key elements that specifically involved that we're part of. So redesigning offerings, improving member services, the value of membership. So our SIG participates, we had a conference recently. We have successful webinars, collaboration events. We're soon to be releasing podcasts. So it's all about redesigning the way we work, the way we do things to, get involved with any generation. To help enhance that value of what membership's all about with CQI and IRCA particularly. Leading the quality management practice by investing in research and content. Our team's actively involved in this, and you'll get some examples as a team start to speak as we go through the AGM. Broadening the scope of the profession by engaging with allied associations and professions. And I come back to my point of audit has no boundaries. So we do have, and we have had in the past, collaborations with the ASQ, for example, the IIA, as we seek to grow our learnings across any audit spectrum, really. Growing our global influence, and I'm very passionate about this, and the team's very passionate about this. We are a global team, so that we want to continue to grow that global influence, and that's only done through collaboration and building relationships. So very much aligned to the CQI strategy. I'm going to hand over to Ryan. I hope, Ryan, you're on the call, mate.
I can indeed. Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh,
can you hear me, Billy? Oh, no.
I talk.
Can anyone hear me? No.
Yeah, can hear you, Ryan.
Oh, fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. If you want to go on to the next slide, if possible, please, Billy. So very much touching on Billy's point there about us being a global network of audit professionals. We had a bit of a geographical breakdown here, just showing where the vast majority of our members are based, as you would well expect in more of the European continent. But we do have quite a lot of members sort of demonstrated throughout the entirety of the world. This is all based on the locations of the memberships that we've got on the LinkedIn profiles through our LinkedIn group. So we thought it'd be good to present that through to you guys, just to help you to understand that we do have a very good, very broad population of contributors to this particular SIG. Next slide, if possible, please, Billy. So we thought we'd also just touch on 2023, which has been a bit of a year of transition. Although it was originally formed in May 2021 with membership from across the globe, we now have additional members of the officer team, including myself, that was set up in 2022. We had the global committee that was established and active, and we currently have quite a significant number of members at 400. That's a massive increase in growth from the 183 that we had in June 2023. It's up by 84%. Touching more onto that LinkedIn group, we have 317 total members, and we do have a good degree of activity there with 33 people active in those last 7 days. And as you can see, most people seem to be from more sort of the London and Glasgow areas, but it's worth noting that we generally have quite low engagement in daily use from the posting. So we'd like to encourage you guys to commit and contribute as much as possible to that LinkedIn group, get some discussions going and see whether or not we might be able to sort of create some opportunities for sharing that knowledge within that group. I think that's everything from me, Billy.
Yep, thank you very much. I want to take an opportunity to welcome a special guest speaker. I'm going to introduce Ian Rosen from Deep Fathom, and he's going to take us through a special topic this afternoon. So I'm going to hand over to Ian, and you just tell me when to move on to the next slide. So thank you.
Okay. Right. So go to the next slide then. Okay. So my name's Ian Rosen. I'm from Deep Fathom. Bit of background about me. I've been a member of CQI for 25 years. I've run training courses for CQI on various subjects. I've attended standard committees on behalf of CQI and UK and that sort of stuff. My background's in financial services, I know. But I became passionate in understanding how people's behaviour impacted on performance. That was my thing. After I got made redundant, I started doing consultancy and all this sort of stuff and training folks in BSI and things around auditing. And then I realised actually that I think I was running a course about effective auditing or auditing effectiveness or something like that. And I realised I couldn't do it either. So at that point, I thought to myself, there's something going on up here that says something's not quite right somewhere. So I took some time out and I created, based around some very different science and academic rigour, a method of auditing, which in those days wasn't called risk-based auditing and it wasn't called cultural and capability, but nonetheless, it was a living. So what I want to do is I want to just sort of share some information and thoughts around the sort of journey I've been on and where I've currently ended up with. Hopefully you'll find it interesting and a bit different, but by all means ask questions. Okay, off we go. So, as I say, being 20 years experiencing this, and the team have as well, particularly around enterprise risk management and business performance. Just because I've got a quality background doesn't mean to say we haven't got expertise in business performance. So we turn it the other way around. We were the first people to create a UCAS accredited registration body that was virtual. It had no head office. That must be about 8 or 9 years ago now. And that used what we're calling here behavioural auditing methodologies. So in other words, we had a machine, we had some tech that actually did the auditing for us in part. That was an interesting discussion with UCAS walking in the first time and saying, actually, we're going to use a piece of IT to as part of this auditing process. And I'll go into that in a little bit more. But to give them the credit, the whole purpose of doing it was to prove that actually you could audit in a different way. Change was possible, let's put it that way. We also, the next one, trusted collaborations. We also formed a partnership with the university to run what I'm going to show you on MBA courses, because we wanted to validate that the methodologies were actually as good as, or if not better than, what we could call the traditional approaches. But as I say, we're interested in behavioural insights, and particularly patterns of behaviour within an organisation. So an organisation is made up of a collective of people. So what we're interested in is actually how they're all working together to deliver results on compliance and this sort of stuff. It's based around human interactions. The science is quite different. So we might talk about Deming, for example. I would talk about Akoff, and I've talked about other people. But the science has been around for years. We've just got to use it. And we call it next generation auditing. So in other words, we're not saying what we've been doing is wrong. What we're saying is there's some options and ways of thinking that might help us in this risk-based world we're moving into. So if you move on to the next one, Billy. So we started off by thinking about what's a management system or what's a process, and we lean hard on mechanistic and organic reality. So mechanistic and organic thinking comes from Burns and Stalker in '61. So a mechanistic system is often closed, it's non-adaptive, A leads to B. Typically it's predetermined, so you have a predetermined set of requirements, for example, and you audit against it, those sorts of things. Whereas organic reality of a system is this collection of human beings working away where you can't predict what's going to happen. I can't predict what I'm going to say, and I can't predict what your reaction is going to be. But nonetheless, we are a system. And how we interact with it and how we behave with it actually will determine our success. So this sort of way of seeing a system is very different to our closed system, our mechanistic system. Often you can't write it down. Often it's intangible. It's happening. It's in the air. It's our reality. So there's two ways. I know they're extreme, okay, but there's two sort of ways of seeing a system or a process. And just relying on our traditional auditing, we've discovered, because the scope, which is the green line around the outside, if you like, if we're just doing our mechanistic type auditing, which is traditional, we in effect end up with an objective evidence gap, which increases the risk to certification or understanding business performance or compliance, whatever it might be. So that's a risk. So that's sort of where we are. And as we move from mechanistic world to our organic world, the traditional audit methodologies start to tail off in terms of their effectiveness. And it's that gap that we've been seeking to basically address. If you move on to the next one. So we have our organic and our reality range there. So we plug that what we've called behavioural or cultural auditing. And by combining the two together, we've reduced the risk to say certification or understanding what's really happening in an organisation. And the other thing we're finding increasingly is that weird sort of yellow line that goes through traditional auditing. What's happening is as we get towards AI, and that gains pace, making digitization, robotics, and so on and so forth, that is being squeezed, if you like, into traditional auditing because its relevance is potentially coming less and less. So we have to be cognitive of that sort of interaction. And I've shown these slides many times, many different accreditation organizations. It's an interesting dynamic. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So the story is how do we get there? So if we move on to the next slide, Billy, sorry. So these are some of the things that we pick up in terms of the challenges. So the first one is sample size being too small. Obviously, it's often manually intensive. It's susceptible to human error and inconsistency between auditors. Because of the nature of what we're doing, we're backward looking at where we've been as opposed to where we're going, which is the next bit about this missing gap with people's behaviour, and also then that causes poor insights into what's really happening in an organisation. And those sorts of challenges sort of contribute to this objective evidence gap. So they're all intertwined in terms of the feedback we get, the gap we've identified, and it's all coming together. So the question is then, how do we address that issue? So next slide, Billy. Right, so this slide builds. So you'll have to hang with me in the explanation. So you can see on the top left, you've got a character in blue interacting with a character in a yellow color. Now, if that interaction is good, i.e. the behavior of the person in blue is supporting, if you like, the outcome of what they're doing, is enabling the person in yellow to do what they are trying to achieve, that interaction is good, right? If it's not good, i.e. the yellow one to the green one, that interaction is poor, okay, the risk of not delivering ultimately what we're trying to do goes up. If it's good, it goes down, i.e. the risk. Okay, so, and then of course, everybody is interacting with everybody else. All these interactions are going on all the time, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, etc. And that's what we've got to understand. So we're focusing on interaction quality. Okay, so when we do an audit, we're not talking to the person doing the job, which is what we typically do generally, traditionally, i.e. the person in blue. We're talking to the person in yellow. In other words, the person who's experiencing that behavior. So we're talking about something that's experiential. Okay, so you're all experiencing what I'm saying. Okay, that interaction quality is good, not so good, sort of okay, it's all right, it's wonderful, I hope. Okay, and that will help the success of the presentation of what we're trying to do as we get to the page. So good and bad, and those interaction qualities drive the level of risk to business performance, objectives, and compliance. Now, as I said, presentation, of a talk, you're experiencing it, good, bad, indifferent, some of it's useful, some of it's not. And then we track that, each of the interactions, against a risk and capability model. So in other words, we score it. So we collect it, score it, present it. And that gives information. It allows us to get to grips with the qualitative data that we've got and make it visible. Move on. All right. So that's the risk performance capability model on the right there. It's not necessarily right. It's not necessarily wrong. It is what we've learned over the last sort of 10 years, adding it all together. So every bit of evidence we get goes against that model in some way, shape, or form. And essentially, it's all about behavioral engagement and people's engagement and how engaged that engagement is aligned, how people are aligned to deliver the results of the organization. So the higher the score, the better alignment. Lower the score, the worse alignment. So that gets, and then compliance, to give you an idea, is round about 40-ish. So it's okay. Okay, but better alignment is better compliance. Yeah, so an acceptable compliance is round about 40. Doesn't have to be that, it can be different, but from experience, we know that where people's behavior is better aligned, and therefore the culture is more supportive of what the organization is trying to achieve, that is a higher than 40. So that we give a gap for people to move into as opposed to saying, yes, it's okay. Move on, Benny. Okay, so how does it work? Depends on what it is we're trying to achieve, but essentially we run an online audit. So that's run by a tech platform, mainly for two reasons. One, because we want to reach to a lot of people in the organization, irrespective of geographic location. And secondly, we want to make sure it's totally confidential. So we don't collect names or anything like that. It's just confidential. So auditees would participate in it, and what they think they're looking at is, in effect, a small survey where they've been presented with a different list of experiences and they just select one. Okay, we don't use Likert scales, we don't use questions, we don't use anything that traditionally would be. It's just a set of experiences that are good or bad against the risk model. That all goes into the platform, so it's scored automatically against that risk model. Then if we're doing internal traditional auditing, i.e. document review, witness audit as techniques, whatever you want to call it, that also takes place online. So you've got a human being looking at something, fine. The answer to that goes into the platform as well, using the same risk model. And then once we're okay, we're happy, press a button and get a report. Reports can be anything. And so it doesn't really matter. And you're just seeing images there of potentially what things could look like. Yeah, they're obviously real, but that's the sort of format. Sometimes we do a lot of behavioral stuff and not much document review, traditional auditing stuff. Sometimes it's the other way around. So it all depends on the context of what you're auditing. So if you can move on to the next slide, Billy. Oh, by the way, go backwards one. In running the certification body and talking to some CBs, engaging with this, obviously meets MD5 and all the rest, 17021 and things like that. So our friends are historically aware. So I know them there as well. So now move on to. So this is an example of a sales process. So we've got the company there, and we would get participants or auditees to take part in any part of the organisation which is impacted by or involved in sales. So in some way, shape or form, all those people are involved or impacted by the sales activity, including, if we want to, people outside the organisation like customers, suppliers, other stakeholders. So we gather data, this experiential data. There's no one size fits all. So HR, for example, will have different experiences to the senior management team, who will have different experiences to product development, who will certainly have different experiences to suppliers and other stakeholders. So it's not a case of saying everybody gets the same thing, because they all have different experiences of sales. The risk model runs as people take part, and at the bottom right there is some examples of the results showing against a set of clauses in 9001 using that model. Now, what we also do is then we cut the same data against business issues, which we call drivers of performance. So in effect, the top one is how effective the process is, and the bottom one is, does it meet the requirements of a standard? You could take it as another way. So for the C-suite and the senior management team, they in effect see the top bit. So in this case, because it's about sales, this organisation is reporting against risk to profitability, net sales margins, etc. And what we find is that senior management quite like to engage with the top bit, but not so much in the bottom bit, and vice versa, because somebody has to do the bottom bit anyway. So by giving the C-suite something that's aimed at them, we change the dialogue. So the dialogue starts to change at the senior management team, the board meeting. So it becomes about performance, what the standard's there to achieve, as opposed to saying, this is what you're doing. This has got a non-conformance against 6.4 or whatever it might be. So you get a completely different reaction. And that's what we're trying to get. Move on, please, Billy. So in those particular cases, earlier you saw some diagrams. This is atypical out of that. So we can see that the various people taking part in the departments at the scores. A couple of things to take from that. Just because with this type of auditing, it isn't necessarily where the score is low is the problem. Okay, so it's in this case, it's not the management team. It's their experience of competence management in the organisation on the right-hand side, and the application of policy on the left-hand side. But that doesn't mean to say they're the problem. So in this type of auditing, the low scores don't necessarily mean that's where the problem is. The problem probably lies elsewhere in the system, and the impact of that failure in the other part of the system is being shown up in those departments. So you're starting to benchmark departments against each other. What's interesting about some of that is there's a human auditor at the top there on the policy one. So we start to expose risks that are typically hidden at the moment. So the auditor is saying, yeah, it's okay, but actually the risks in the organisation is it really being applied, and is it affecting my job? Those sorts of things we can get to. So move on, Billy. So in terms of reporting, so that's a standards report from us internal audit. You can't quite see that, but you've got some scores against 9001, 14,001, health and safety. So that's a process being run by an organisation. Then they're cutting the data against some business objectives and 3 standards at the same time. So I'm not saying the reports have to look like that. It's a way of thinking about the issue, a system of thinking, way of thinking. So we move on. Audit of competence. CQI, when did the article in February, I think it was, wanted to mention about audit of competence, and this is the latest sort of thinking around some folks at a certain UK accredited organisation, and as CB brings this sort of stuff on board, so it gives you an idea of what they're thinking about. So the top one's all about understanding strengths and weaknesses of different auditing methodologies as an audit of competence, as opposed to saying we must do this. They all have strengths and weaknesses, so it's about optimizing the strengths and minimizing the weaknesses, and also dealing with intangible and intangible objective evidence. It's out there. We're going to have to get used to it, I think. The second one is all about analytics. So it's about looking at patterns in behavior, patterns in results. What's it telling me? What it's not telling me? Is it worth reporting? Those sorts of things. So there's a bit of analytics going on in there, and particularly around emergent risks. There's another thing that auditing is including. So digitized risk-based processes, depending upon the scope, shapes the methods you're going to use, because I'll say the context is critical to understanding that, as opposed to doing the same thing each time. Systems understanding, open systems, closed systems, management of variety, as opposed to management of variation. And so those sorts of things. Risk-based reporting. So you saw some of the things that we do. We use scores and all the rest of it to highlight the risks, because make it very visual, and we find that helps. And then the other one is professional growth, particularly around things like the use of AI and risk-centric approaches to auditing. So there's some of the like auditor competence flavors. Move on, Billy. So some of the trying to meet some of the challenges. The first one there, generally speaking, because you can never be absolute, generally speaking, we get an audit size of about 55% of the organization, roughly speaking. And that, of course, enriches the data. So it's better to get lots of people involved doing a little bit than it is to get a few people doing a lot. Generally speaking, people spend about 10 minutes. This is 15 minutes, their average, but it's not really as long as that. It should be short, sharp, get in, get out. And there's no correlation between the number of questions you would typically ask and the experiential stuff that goes on that we're using. There's no relationship. It's much shorter. Third one's all about consistency. Because we're putting it into an IT platform against a risk model, then the consistency is always there. The next one is because behaviors are predictors of what's going to happen. So therefore, we're mixing the forward-looking with the backward-looking to give a different optic. And because it's digitization and because we're getting a lot more people involved, we get literally thousands of pieces of objective evidence. Each one of them scores, and we actually count the number of pieces of objective evidence, so we can prove it to certain organizations as to what's that objective evidence meaning, so we can put a number to it. And then the last one is what we call new generation insights, but that's basically reporting, and this business reporting as well as standard reporting. So that's bring the gap. Next one. Some of the benefits we come across, the things we hear about is geographical flexibility, because you can reach multiple sites simultaneously. We were talking earlier about ESG and environmental stuff. Well, obviously, if you've got less people flying, traveling, etc., that reduces the impact on the environment. And we count that. The second one is large sample sizes. That because it's a larger sample size, and because we've got more evidence, we can dwell right down. So we give customers dashboards and things like that to really delve down into the data, so they can make better informed decisions. Predictive analytics, as I say, behavior is a predictor of what's going to happen. It's a bit like looking through a windscreen, driving a car, as opposed to the rear view mirror about where you've been. Organizational alignment, and we think probably increased efficiency, because it requires minimal training to think about. Actually, it's a way of thinking about a problem, so you don't have to go like lots of references and all that sort of stuff. And the last thing was, I thought you might be interested, was a quote from a well-known accreditation body from a customer of ours. So some people worry sometimes that a CB is going to come in and say no, or UCAS are going to come in and say no. So it's there. Anyway, next one, Billy. Hope that was some interesting, if not arguably way of thinking about auditing. Happy to share, happy to contribute. But in my experience, it's happening. So yeah, I think from a SIG perspective, we've got to get up with it, on with it, and stay engaged with the change.
There's a question came through there. Maybe in the chat.
Yeah, we're going to have time for questions also at the end. But if there's any questions just now, I'm just going to open up the chat just to see if there's anything here. Really like this. This Christian said, really like this. Is this cultural survey then compared against actual results for that process?
Yeah. Well, you can do if you wish.
If there's any questions, please put them in the chat, and we are going to have about 5 to 10 minutes towards the end of the meeting as well. So if you think of anything between now and then, whether it's for Ian or whether it's for the SIG, one question I would have is that the practicality of this, because as auditors, we could be working with people from multiple generations and occupancies. That's from Ben.
Yeah. What's critical is when you are working with, in this field, because it's all behavioral, you have to be very careful about how you create content. Okay, so the content is aimed at who's doing the job role. So multiple generations, different roles, different ethnic backgrounds, etc., etc. That's it. How you do it in terms of creating it. Okay, is for another time. But what's Ben's saying there is, yes, you have to be. Language is really important. Okay, so in this sort of auditing, there's no. If you're asking who are your interested parties, yeah, 99.75% of people in an organisation wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about, right? So don't ask the questions. So don't pose that as an experience. So another example might be, typically we might say, how do you carry out corrective action? Behaviourally, you'd say, how do we learn from our mistakes? Yeah, so it's just learning not to talk audit or system. It's not difficult. It's just a way of different way of thinking. But Ben is right. That's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I found it fascinating. I mean, I was writing down questions and you answered them. I went along, which is absolutely fantastic. One question I do have is you're using sort of behaviours and culture as sort of almost sort of interchangeable.
Yeah.
And I can see that obviously behaviours are the application of the culture, but
they create the culture.
Yes, yeah.
So it's a bit like saying the role. You might not remember, but anyway, the Rolling Stones come from London. Okay, so they're conditioned by their behaviours in their environment in which they sit. The Beatles come from Liverpool, so therefore they're conditioned by the environment they sit. That creates the but creates the culture. But the music is an emerging property. So the behaviours of the Stones, which the music emerges from them collecting their internal culture, if you like, their internal society. So the music emerges from that interaction. That's why the Beatles' music is different. So there's a lot going on. So results emerge.
That's a brilliant analogy. I really like that. That's a brilliant analogy. I really like that.
I could prattle on for hours about that.
And I certainly can relate to that example.
Yeah, you just got to think about it in a slightly different way, and you then start to think about what's an audit.
One more popped up. We'll take this one, and then any other questions we'll catch it towards the end of the meeting. One way to clarify the path and terms and conditions, standards, probable observations in the opening meeting. That's from Rashid.
Yeah. What you do is you insert it into the existing certification or audit process you've got. It's at the end of the day, it's an audit methodology designed to address a particular issue. But you don't change your audit process. You just think, it's just a way of thinking about the problem. And then once you're away with the problem and the questions being asked, then you start to realise, actually, I could do this. Yeah. And yes, you could. There's a good reason doing it to close the gap, make better auditing, adopt a risk-based approach. Then I think you're on your way.
I think Chris has got a great point. Can you write that musical and act it down, please? It really resonated.
Brilliant. Someone asked me for an article just before. That's one on the list. But yeah, you're right.
So Ian, thank you very much. That was absolutely brilliant. Very insightful, very refreshing. And if it's okay with you, with your permission, we can share the slides with the bigger AGM after the event, if that's okay. Again, if there's any questions from anyone in the audience, please put them in the chat. We are watching it, monitoring it, and we will have some dedicated time towards the end. I'm going to move us on to the next bit, which is the election of officers. So essentially, what this means is nominate. We do this every year. It's part of the AGM structure. So essentially, we have chair, vice chair, and officers. So obviously, myself as a chair. The 3-year terms to be held no more than 2 terms. So I'm actually going into my second and final term as chair, with Richard and Doris and Ryan as part of the team. So in terms of voting, and this, we want your feedback. There's 2 aspects to messaging here. So obviously, we're going to continue the proposed that we continue in the current format, as you can see here. If there's any feedback to this, then please email me at that email there, chair.auditsig@quality.org, to any of the nominations being proposed. But it's essentially what's being proposed is what we'll continue with. But what we're really interested in is to keep growing the numbers, the influence from the global team. So what we're looking for is we've got 400 members signed up to the Audit SIG. We've got about 35 active committee members, and we've got 4 essentially officers that look after the kind of framework governance of the Audit SIG. But we're always on the lookout for more. So I very much encourage, if there's anyone out there interested, or if there's any connections, friends, they want to be being part of this journey to try and make a positive influence in the world of audit. We really want to hear from you. So I want to hear from anyone that wants to join the committee, that maybe want to join the officer team. It's a brilliant global volunteer team, and we're very flexible. You know, you can commit as much or as little as you want, but just to have your expertise will add tremendous value. So if there's anyone out there that wants to get involved, please let me know. And if there's any feedback to what's proposed here for the next term, again, please let me know, and please let the team know, and we'll discuss and we'll feedback. As it stands, this is what's been proposed for the next year and the next cycle. And as I said, this is my last 3-year cycle as chair, and then we'll hopefully leave a lasting legacy onto the next chair and team as we move forward. I am going to open it up now to let the officers have a quick chat. Unfortunately, Doris isn't here today, but I think Rich is kindly going to cover for Doris, and you'll get to meet some of the team. And later in the presentation, you're also going to hear from the committee. So we've got 3 members of the committee going to share stories of some of the things they've been up to as well. But we'll start with the officers. So I'm going to hand over to Richard.
Thank you, Billy. Yes, thank you, Billy. So yes, bit of background on me. I've spent all of my career working in the pharma industry. Started out with what was then called Wellcome, which became Glaxo Wellcome, which became GlaxoSmithKline and is now GSK. I was formerly a corporate internal auditor with GSK. I started out in the laboratories, worked a number of quality roles in sites, central, global roles. Spent 18 years as an auditor. That was auditing internal and external manufacturing and supply sites. Started out as a compliance auditor, so looking at compliance with GSK's quality requirements and also the regulators, so FDA, MHRA, also actually the Japanese one, the PMDA. And then my last 10 years of my career is very much looking at risk-based auditing. So as I was saying earlier, auditing the so what, and looking much more at what the implications for the business were. Focus very much on product quality and supply continuity, risks and issues. My background is I was a chemist, so I was a chartered chemist, chartered scientist, and I've been a member of the CQI from, for almost 30 years now, 40 years now, sorry, 40 years. Maths is actually better than that. So yes, almost 40 years now, which is a bit scary actually. And yeah, chartered quality professional as well. So I've been, as Billy said, I was I joined the SIG when it started up, originally in the officer team, and then vice chair. And I would just repeat what Billy said. It's a great team to work on, and we're always looking for extra additional volunteers. And what I would say as well, especially, we're very sort of Eurocentric at the moment in the officer team. So if there's anybody from elsewhere in the world that would like to join the team, we really want that international perspective, because it's important. Billy says audit has no boundaries. That's and that means internationally as well. And so we want to have a global perspective and bring that diversity much more into the center of the team. Thank you. I'm now going to talk about Doris. So Doris's experience with the management system started in the early 2000s. And again, Doris is very much into bringing in people into the profession. So she's actively sought to attract new professionals into auditing, through engaging with students, lecturing at the university. In her, she comes from Romania, or conducting applied research activities involving master degree students. So her skills in management systems were pivotal to her early career and allowed her to grow from an internal environment management system auditor safely and successfully into a regional and then national level internal public auditing for one of Romania's most complex public services, water administration. I think she could do something in the UK here. She's been an IRCA auditor since 2011 and then a lead auditor since 2019. She's conducted operational and management system audits against a variety of management system standards, both in Romania and the UK. As of 2020, she's been a chartered member of the CQI, and she's also a member of the Global Institute for Internal Auditors. So again, what's interesting there is she's bringing in from an organisation that's based very much on the sort of financial and sort of data basis as well as quality. So she's obviously with this attitude and a mindset of curiosity. Doris has been immersed in a mixture of audit roles, performing management system audits, supply chain audits, compliance and internal, as well as acting as a technical specialist auditor for sustainability certifications in the built environment. She's very focused as a volunteer officer for the SIG, but she's since moved to Brussels and moving from a business management system auditor for a global engineering management and development consultancy firm based in the UK, taking up her current role as lead performance auditor for NATO in their external body International Board of Auditors, auditing across 15 reporting entities across NATO. So that must be quite an interesting job, and I don't suppose she can tell us much about it.
I'll speak to you afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's one of those where she'd probably say, if I told you about it, I'd have to kill you afterwards. But so that's Doris.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Going to hand over to Ryan, please.
Good afternoon again, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, Ryan.
Fantastic. So my name's Ryan Ranard. I've been quality all my life for my profession. As soon as I came out of my time as an apprentice, I started in aviation. I've worked in aviation and quality for nearly 18 years now. It's across the four main quality areas: assurance systems, customers and suppliers. I joined the CQI 2 years ago as a chartered member, and I've also got the IRC principal auditor status for aerospace. I've been a lead auditor now for 8 years, and I joined the Audit SIG because I wanted to start contributing more and giving a lot more back to the community and helping Billy with his mission to sort of further this idea that audit has no boundaries. So I focused a little bit more on sort of the things that make me who I am, as opposed to the things that I've done, because there's little bits in the past and I'm not that big on talking about myself. So my two personal statements is about the fact that quality for me is very much a preference. We're all choosing the things that we work to, and audit has to fit into that. We have to factor in the fact that people have preferences and there's ways that they like to achieve things, and also the fact that industry should be there to learn from each other. One of the great things that we have within the CQI, and certainly in the Audit SIG, is the fact that there are so many people from so many different facets, not only globally, but also through so many different industries. And it's such a wonderful opportunity to bring everybody into a room so that we can all learn and benefit from those experiences and all those different situations and knowledge that we have. And possibly one of my favourite quotes ever, which I think sums up auditing and quality in general: quality is found in the greatest abundance whenever audit is being sought, because it always defeats audit because it's better organised. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Ryan. And that's just to give a bit of insight to what we as officers have been doing with the SIG for the last few years. And again, just re-emphasising that message. If there's anyone that wants to become on the committee, you're going to hear from the wider committee in a second, or you want to be part of the officer team, given that a little bit more in terms of volunteering hours, we'd like to hear from you. From an international perspective, local perspective, you know, we want to keep growing that influence. And as Ryan quite rightly said, I do like to push that message about, or the mantra about, audit has no boundaries. You know, we're very passionate about that. Key highlights over the past year. I think, Richard, you were covering this one, or?
Yeah, was that okay? I can do. Okay then.
Passed over.
Thank you, Billy. Yeah, Ryan's talked about our LinkedIn group when he gave the figures earlier. And as he said, it's growing in membership, 400 members, which is pretty good. We've done a couple of joint, we've been involved with some joint meetings. So we've had joint meetings with the IMS, the Sustainability SIGs. We've had some joint webinars with the Pharmaceutical Quality Group, which is the Pharma SIG. I'll be talking about that a bit later. Our members have been very active with producing articles for both Quality World and also on the website. And that includes another thing I'll be talking about later, and a series on the culture of quality in Japan. We are very much what we're into is the content of what we're producing, and so we want to expand this, continue with this, and obviously the technical guide, or not the book, is going to be a key feature of that. We had our first hybrid meeting in March. This is the second one. We're very keen to actually do more of these, because we do believe that actually getting together face to face where we can really provides huge benefits. Obviously, the idea of having them as hybrid is because we don't want to exclude anybody. But we're always happy to welcome people to our hybrid meetings. And I think we are also looking at sort of doing a bit of a tour, moving out of London rather than remaining here in the centre.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay. So yes, as I carry on. So getting your money's worth out of me today. So yes, one of the I'll say this, is the highlights of the last year is we worked together with the PQG, the Pharmaceutical Quality Group, to produce a series of webinars on auditing in pharma. Coming from a pharma background, it's key to this. So the PQG has recently revised their auditing monograph, which is a little booklet. This is the second edition. The first edition was, I think, 2005. One of the advantages, therefore, I'm going to say this, of our technical series is we'll be able to update it a bit more frequently than that. But as I say, it's a very nice little booklet. We've also, the second one in February was on risk-based auditing. As a an industry perhaps tended to look a bit more backwards, but certainly in the last few years there's been more of a move to sort of risk-based, and the regulators are very keen on this, so that you understand what's coming down the track. And the last one we did was an auditing from the auditee's perspective. As auditors, we're very focused very much on what's happening on our side of the table. But what's it like for the auditee? Now, a lot of us will have come from the other side of the table, of course. So if you like, we've been there. We've what I used to say was, we, as an auditor, we probably know where the bodies are buried because we probably put similar ones down there ourselves. And that's what, but we can forget what it's like to be on the other side of the table. And that's why it's important to understand firstly, what are the fears, the concerns, the worries for the auditee, but also how can we help them to help us? In other words, make their contribution to the process better for everybody, because the idea is it's not a case of, as we know, catching people out. It's helping them to improve their business. And quite often that can be, okay, how can you explain things better to us? Because if you can explain things better to us, we're going to have less concerns about it. So these three, sort of this package that we put together was very successful. Certainly the first one was the highest attendance for the CQI, to any webinar in 2023. So we were quite happy about that. I am talking to the PQG to see if we can do other joint webinars based on, on the success of this last one. If you move on to the next slide. And then this is Razul in Japan and we were having conversation because I spent a lot of time working with Japan. A previous role of mine was a Japan quality SME for GSK. And one of the things I'd learned on my early trips to Japan is how different things are in Japan from the perception of quality, in the sense that the aha moment for me was when it pointed out to me that sort of in the West, we're very much concerned on, is the product going to work? And so it's very much the intrinsic quality. In Japan, it's very much also about the extrinsic quality. And the approach is, if you as a manufacturer haven't taken care over what we can see, i.e. the packaging, the external appearance, how do we know you've taken care over what we can't see, which in a pharma product would be the purity, the quality, the safety? It's a very different approach, but it's a very key approach. And so based on that and other things, Razul and I have written a series of articles online, and we've so far published 4. There's another 2 that are going through review at the moment, and we're intending to write more after that. And then also we want to do a webinar using some of these stories, which we are going to we're targeting for later this year. So again, it's part of this idea of sort of using multimedia, that yes, we've got the written stuff, but then we want to be able to talk about it and also hear from other people who've had experiences working in Japan. And because it's a webinar from Japan, so Razul has a friend who does sort of manga illustrations, which we're going to use to sort of illustrate this. And the picture on the right is one of those, actually talking about root cause investigations. There's a little bit of a flavour there for what's coming down later in the year.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Back to Ryan.
He had to leave.
Oh, he had to leave.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think you have to drop off. Yeah.
I'll cover for Ryan. So Ryan actually last week was at Quality Live, talking about quality function driving poor quality culture, and he was one of the panelists discussing this particular topic. So it's a highlight that we've got representation from our audit SIG at very much key events. So, I mean, this is a flagship CQI event of the year, and it's brilliant to see Ryan as an example from our team up on the stage, using that experience to share his knowledge, his expertise, particularly when it comes to audit and culture. Shame I'm probably not giving this justice that Ryan would give it, but hopefully I am. But it was just to share, some highlights from our team, and Ryan himself speaking at major events like this, which is fantastic for Ryan, fantastic for the team, CQR in general. The Audit SIG collaboration, Richard's already mentioned some of this already with the deepening of the ties between us and the pharmaceutical SIGs, but we're also linked heavily with sustainability in the IMS SIG. So I sat in a panel chat just a few weeks ago with Jonathan and Zoe and some other panelist guests looking at the additional climate change requirements that's been added to the Annex SL framework. Obviously, going forward, they'll continue those discussions, particularly with some of the changes coming under consideration. When you're looking, we have to act. This is actually what Doris was actually going to say with regards to acting as advocates for our profession, to position as an insurance markets, quality of data, ESG, supply chain. These are things we're going to look at as hot topics within the Audit SIG. These are things we're discussing just now. These are conversations that we're going to continue to have, and not just within the Audit SIG, out with the Audit SIG. So we need to, join up with the other SIGs. And you'll hear more about some of this collaboration as we go through the next few slides and from the voice of the committee. I'm going to hand over to Tony now, though, and he's going to take us through some of our key activities that were hot off the press as of even today.
Hello, everyone. If you go to the next slide, Billy, straight away. This is just a quick one to give you a quick background that I come from a certification body background. So we do third-party auditing accredited by UCAS, and I also do a bit of volunteering. So that's the people person and the auditor person, just in case you don't know me. But so we'll get to the crux of things, Billy, if you move on there. So what we'll be trying to do is, there was discussion over the last couple of meetings that we've had about trying to leave a bit of a legacy. And this is the why, along with the objectives and obviously the CQI competency framework. We thought that really as auditors, we should be leaving a legacy and trying to encourage new people into this industry, trying to create value proposition, move away from the clipboard civil service type auditor prevalent picture, and also trying to attract or meet these pillars from the SIG's mission, like about engaging, collaborating, creating elements of best practice, and then contributing to learning and innovation, and hopefully adding to the body of knowledge for the CQI in the way we do that, and hitting some of the objectives along the way. The Audit Technical Series actually started with the idea for a book, and quite quickly through the Audit SIG committee and other guests, we were challenged on being middle-aged people, not considering our audience. If you move to the next slide, Billy. And so we've actually come up with an Audit Technical Series, and we're only now starting to flesh out a framework for what that actually means. And what we're trying to do is look at different topics within the audit universe, if you want to call it. And we've broken that down further in a minute. But really what we're trying to do is come up with, as Richard was talking about earlier, is to come up with mixed media so that people can access it on their phones, on their laptops. Potentially people could print it out and read it as hard copy if they wish to, and have it in some form of central repository so that it acts as almost a yardstick or a reference tool that people can access. And perhaps it's accessed in different ways based on whether they're a guest in the wider world, or whether a CQI member, or whether some of this can be monetized in the future to help the CQI and or raise funds for the Audit SIG activities. So you can see here in these wee graphics that are up there, we thought about, we're going to have somebody hopefully from a keynote or key figure within different industries, professions, and or published guru, shall we say, that can provide a foreword to some of the topics. We're liking some sort of research papers to be done, or a technical paper that can define and provide background to some of the subject topics. we're looking at infographics and or graphic representation for visual learners and or to provide an idea of what that topic means. We're trying to get some video content, and we're trying to get some rich discussion from people, both guests and CQI members and SIG members and IRCA members, with regards to their particular viewpoint, experiences, case studies, value propositions, and benefits they've got from the audit, so that other people can learn from their experience. Next slide, Billy. So what does this actually look like? We've yet to get it ratified, but we're looking to see if it can be part of the learning and development section within the CQI website, so that the different modules within this audit technical series can be hosted, and as I say, can be a go-to reference tool for up-and-coming auditors, for people like me who have certification body head on, that I could possibly go and look at how they audit the pharma when I don't work in that sector, and or financials and stuff. So it could be rich and great experience, both for just personal learning and or it could aid people in moving through different career development pathways, and or trying to encourage people to take up audit as a serious career, rather than, as most of us do, fall into it. So if we move on to the next one, what we are doing now, and the reason why this is in an AGM, is really to try and say, number one, we'll go back to Billy's audit has no boundaries. Number two, we are a rich and diverse SIG in the committee, and also the wider committee and the LinkedIn people that we have engaged. So we need, one, the people. Where most of us are volunteers. Everybody in the room at this point is volunteers. So from that point of view, we have limited resources. So we need people to help. We need lots of help. And also we've got a timeline. Part of our discussions today here, and the reason why we're at CQI HQ, is to try and put a framework together so that we have a summary of the topic points that we're trying to hit on, and we can start to get contributors or contributors, and people that can get involved either in those writing research papers, producing videos, helping produce infographics, and contributing in any way. But could you make that a wee bit bigger just for a second, Billy?
Yeah.
So in terms of the topics that we've got there for the meantime, we've picked on 10. So for instance, what is audit? History of audit, sector applications, scheme requirements, global perspective, audit tools, audit techniques, who is the auditor, why audit, future of auditing. So even if you come to the last three, who is the auditor? It's about competence, about people, about soft skills. Where do they come from? What's their technical background? What do they do? The why audit. What are the benefits for the organisation? Auditees, industry, consumers, the auditor themselves. Future of auditing. You know, what does it look like now? What is it possibly going to look like in the future? I think already Ian has told us that actually the future's here already. We just need to catch up. So there's lots of stuff in there that we can have, and hopefully if it's a central repository, as we talk about when things move on, if we get to the future of auditing now, if things move on, then people can contribute and we can add to that as a body of knowledge as it progresses. So you go to the next slide, Billy. So what we really need is that we need people to do things. There's lots of stuff there that we've talked about. Hopefully, if people want to get more involved in the discussions, we can talk about the detail. But first of all, you need to get in touch. If anybody's out there that's listening in that's interested in making a contribution, please, what we can do is we'll share. I've seen somebody coming in there saying about sharing the slides, but we can share some of this when we come out of today. We can share what the headline framework is and circulate it. And then for individual contributions, if people have a particular subject area that they're interested in, that they'd really like to get involved in, and I mean, oftentimes the best way to learn something is to teach it. So if you are going to get involved, you're going to be doing research, you're going to be obviously trying to fact check what you're thinking and look at opinions and qualify them and validate. And so it is a good way for yourself to learn and to give something back, like Ryan alluded to earlier. If you have particular skills or media of interest in terms of video production, or if it's written in research, you come from a university background, or you've done a PhD in a particular subject. If you're published already in any of the areas and want to make a short contribution or a reduced contribution in terms of something a wee bit smaller, then that'd be brilliant. But if you are getting in touch, it'd be great if you don't just come in and say, yeah, I'm willing to help. What are you willing to help with, and what are you going to commit to? Because we really need to turn this into something that's going to leave a legacy for the Audit SIG, in terms of, let's within the next year or two have those 10 modules down with 40, 50 pieces of resource in there that people coming through in 10 years' time can look at and find useful for understanding what is audit and what does it mean. Some audit tools and techniques could be there. There could be research in terms of templates. We could provide free issue stuff for people that are coming through and want to find out. There's a whole gambit of stuff we'd really love to get involved in that will add and contribute to the Audit Society and helping frame best practice, etc. So we also need, if you're not interested in the actual subject matter in terms of contributing, if it's something you don't have time for, but you have skills in podcast editing, video production, or anything like infographics in terms of illustrations and things, by all means, get in touch. Everybody has a valuable contribution to make. As we said, there's 400 people out there. Hopefully we can do some more appeals on LinkedIn and stuff at a later stage. So hopefully we can get a real body swell of enthusiasm and contributions so that we can do something greater than each of us as an individual. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. We're going to get the voice of the committee now, just to share some stories and some involvement that they've had with the SIG and some background about themselves as well. So I'm going to introduce Jan Javi, if that's okay.
Thank
welcome.
you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining from various parts of the world. Just to introduce myself, I'm Janhavi Yadavad on the Audit SIG here. I would describe myself as a passionate quality professional. I come with 20 plus years of corporate experience in varied functions across the quality and business excellence spectrum at the enterprise and conglomerate level. Conglomerate would be a larger umbrella of a parent organization which forays into various sectors in any economy. Passionate quality professional, well, that's not just to make it sound melodramatic. It's actually passionate because, unlike most, it has not happened accidentally. It has been by choice. I have taken quality professional by choice. I'm here by choice. And passionate because passion is something which you never get tired of, despite doing it day in and day out, beyond the 9 to 5. So, which is why passionate quality professional. Over the years of these 2 decades, I've been a total quality management, a TQM generalist. So when we look at the breadth and the depth, I would say, so far as the breadth is concerned, these are the functions I have had the privilege to work in, been on the auditee side as well, as Richard mentioned, because in order to come to the auditor side, it's better to have been in the frontline operations, then represent your process or your company or your unit as the auditee to face the auditor, and then turn the other side of the table. But happy to say that in spite of being a generalist in all of this, again, a conscious choice to have a specialism in process audit, and which is why, by virtue of that, landing in the Audit SIG. So, ARCA certificated lead auditor with a certificate in QMS and IMS schemes. End-to-end audit design to delivery is what has been my, I would say, core offering in my various roles. And Deming wheel, the PDCA approach, is what I very much stick to and adopt, and I'm a big follower and advocate of the Deming wheel, not just at work, but in various aspects of life. And yes, business profitability enabler, I could say the function itself is a profitability enabler because it has to boil down, and it does boil down to money at the end of the day. So cross-functional and interdepartmental collaboration is such, which you were mentioning about the holistic view of the organization. So that's a huge enabler for that. That was personally about me. Now, my association with the CQI, I've been associated with the CQI since 5 years now. Living its strategy at my level. I am too tiny to speak about the overall deployment of it, but at the last mile, at my level, how do I endeavor to deploy that or live it is that one of these three are the strategies mentioned in the 2030 roadmap. So leading quality management practice, I endeavor to do that at workplace as well as the volunteering space. Prior to joining CQI Audit SIG, I've also been on the CQI London branch committee. I have led the communications piece. So volunteering space has been a great space to explore, contribute, help development of self as well as whoever we've interacted with in the ecosystem. Improvement in member engagement and content offering is what we've managed to do for the CQI London branch, especially through the pandemic when the whole world was virtual. So that was again a big learning for us, and still keep the committee afloat. Broadening the scope of the profession by expanding the gamut of quality with a multi-sectoral focus. So we see many sectors which are less or almost not represented. We tried to bring that into focus in the CQI London branch by having specific sectoral events, and also grow our global influence by collaborating with a diverse group of fellow CQI volunteers, which we continue to do with the members as well as the office bearers. That's been quite enriching. And finally, how did I land here? Again, by choice. So one could have chosen to continue being an auditee on the other side of the table. But if representing my unit as an auditee helped me develop so much, I could only imagine how would it be on the other side. So then it was not like I wished for it and I got it. I worked for it, and I am on the other side now. I lead a team of global auditors. In my current role, I work with a leading global insurance, reinsurance, broking and consulting firm, which is placed in various parts of the world. So I lead a team of auditors where we perform process audits of the revenue, which is booked by the company because it's a listed company. In every geography that the company is present, it is listed. So financial sector and financial audit, this is not something which gets mixed up with the chartered accountant or a CPA, as it's called in the United States. This is the process audit of each and everything, but most crucial because it's the company's revenue that gets booked, which is audited as accurate or not. A lot hinges on that. Audit SIG again by choice. So delighted to add rather to the global quotient of the committee, which is a key mission statement content. I come from India, so I add to the geographical diversity. I come from the financial services sector, so I think I also add to the sectoral diversity. So diversity, that's me. Of course, privileged to bring that to the table, and deeply, highly enthused to drive forward through this great platform and the great minds along. Criticality of audit as a process at both the levels, like we mentioned in the morning, for the organization, for any business as well, not just to be a one-time wonder market, capture the market and disappear, but to survive and thrive continually. Also at an individual level, which in the technical series, like we saw in the coming days, we'll see more of that as we offer it phase by phase. The value of audit as a profession for the next generation to take it up consciously and not land there accidentally, and how it contributes to an individual's growth and development as well. Those are things that I endeavor to contribute in the coming days with the help of everyone. And thank you again. It's great being on board.
Yeah,
thank you.
brilliant. Thank you, Genevieve. Absolutely brilliant that you're on board, and we welcome and appreciate your inputs. Colin.
All right, yeah, me. I don't know if I can follow that, but anyway, I'm Colin Pryor. I work for a large construction business, but I have 40 years experience in quality. I'm a rare breed. I was one of those that landed straight into it, and I've done all those jobs that you see on that slide there on the screen. So I'm very much involved with quality auditing and being an auditee as well. So I've experienced both sides of the fence, if you like. So yeah, a long career in quality and auditing. I'm very passionate about about the business I'm in. And again, the reason I got involved with the Audit SIG, one, because my boss actually nominated me, and another is that I'm very passionate about it and wanted to try and give something back or share over the many years of knowledge that I've gained from doing audits or being involved with audits. Next slide, please, Billy. So again, I've worked for, as I said, all those job roles, and again in many different industries. Again, you can see I've worked in automotive, construction, petrochemical, aerospace, and even been part of a government chartered organisation where I was a lead auditor for BSI. So I've worked in many industries, and again applying audit across all of those areas. The next slide, please, Billy. And again, auditing many different standards. So again, the knowledge you get from looking at different industries and different standards over the years, you can apply this to anything. What I'm just trying to do is get that message across to everybody who's out there, who's starting a career in quality or looking at getting into auditing, and it's a great business to be in. And again, it's moving forward now. I've gone from the days of walking around with a clipboard, as many of us older generation around the table have done, right through to now working with, you know, technology, software packages, different types as we go into the future, and having to adopt AI maybe in the next few weeks or months or years, the way it's moving. So it's a great position to be in. It's a great time to join this type of world. And what I would say is that we're very undervalued as key members in business, but I think that perception is now changing slightly. We are becoming valued, and they realise, a lot of businesses realise that we are part of measuring the business. We are a strong team that can give value back, and that added value back to the business. So all my messages, really, I'm trying to cut this short, really, so is give that to everybody who's connected. You know, get into audit. It's a great living. Again, I'm like yourself, I'm very passionate about it. So I just wanted to try and give something back, and happy to support people if they need to fire any questions and things like that over the next few months, and that as we go forward with our hopefully with our proposed book, app, or whatever it may turn into. So thank you for your time, and again, happy to be part of the committee and sharing all this knowledge around the table. And again, online is great. You never, like you say, every day is a school day. You're never too old to learn. So thank you.
Raquel.
Hi, everyone. So, well, I think I'm the third one in a row falling on this by choice and not by accident. But, well, hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Raquel Castro. I'm a practitioner in the CQI and a chartered architectural technologist. I run a very small consultancy that provides quality management services for building contractors and developers, and I currently work as the quality and compliance manager for high-risk buildings for parallel development, developing their QMS towards the single source of truth for ease of compliance with the new regulations of the Building Safety Act and the secondary legislation. And I've been working on quality briefly for over 17 years in different fields, on site and architectural practices, testing different roles and trying to understand the industry from inside out as much as possible. I'm here today to encourage everyone in the call to join one or more of the many committees that the CQI has formed. You can move to the next one. Thank you. I'm personally also a member of the CONSIG committee, which is a construction SIG committee, and the sponsor of the competence working group. We've got 17 volunteers that are actually part of everywhere in the world that you can think. We had our first proper meeting last week to set up the objectives, and to check out resources, the challenges that we will have to deliver our objectives. And moving forward, we will analyze risk and opportunities and how we communicate with the world through the CQI. We've got various backgrounds, and looking deeper into the objectives. Into the next slide, yeah. The competence working group is focused on reviewing the roles of a quality professional in construction. It depends on the business how the quality person is called. Yeah, sometimes it's a quality coordinator, sometimes it's a quality manager. So we are very looking forward to explore all the roles and different responsibilities that we all have to deal with. And something that came up in the conversation that we found very interesting is what is the difference in between a quality manager in construction and a clerk of works, or what they used to do, looking at quality programs, doing the control checks. So we've got a very good line of work there. In terms of competence, we will define the competence based on skills, knowledge, experience, and behaviors. We will do a gap analysis of the figure of the quality manager, and what, as you can see on the graphic on the right, that our colleague from head office, Alexander, shared with us last week. We can see that we've got some weaknesses and that we are very, very good at other things. So that's the line of exploring that we will be aligning our efforts with, to align it also with the work that head office has been doing. We will review what's the value that a quality manager provides to any business, because I don't know if it's just me, but I've had the feeling for many years that quality has been left on the side in the construction field, while environmental and health and safety has been top of the list in terms of responsibilities. And we are now, thank you to the new legislation, pushing quality towards top of the list, because if we do things right, we don't have to come back to them. There are no accidents, there are no environmental problems. So quality, well applied, will resolve a magnificent number of items and problems that the industry actually faces day to day. Based on that exercise, we will create a framework similar to what Tony was reviewing before for the technical series of issues. And after all the work, we will write a white paper that will be shared with all the members of the CQI and the wider world. And that's briefly what we are doing in this other committee. Within the audit committee, I can also say, as all my colleagues, it's such a pleasure and an honor to be part of it, because it's such a beautifully welcoming environment. And we all share this crazy good passion about quality auditing, helping others, making things better around us, not just at work, but also in our personal lives. That I think that brings a wonderful, wonderful thing to this world. So I leave it there. Thank you very much.
I'm conscious I'm going a little bit over, but I did start late due to my mishaps with technology and Teams, basically. So I do apologise for that. So I've got a couple of quick slides to run through, and then we'll open up for Q&A. So I appreciate patience for anyone that's remaining. So I just want to make it clear that if anyone's attended today, we can get your CPD certificate. We'll work with Chanel, CQI HQ PNET team to do that. And if you're a member, you'll be able to watch this back as well. It'll be uploaded to the website in due course. So just to recap, I think you've heard it throughout the messaging from everyone that's participated in the AGM today. You know, we need to ensure that our message is relevant, and we need to make sure that we're collaborating and connecting with each other, not just in audit. We break down the barriers. Audit has no barrier. I have to say that just once more. I have to get it right in there. But also connecting out with the SIGs. You know, we're connecting and collaborating with other great SIGs and other great friends, even out with the CQI as well. And that's something we'll continue to push, particularly as we start the journey with the Audit Technical Series, as you've heard today. We'll continue to run events, produce content, and at the end of the day, we like to have fun. So, you know, we all like to have unique fun in our own positive ways. And it's definitely, you know, from a personal perspective, to work with this great team, and also globally and for everyone joining in. We do encourage, if you do want to join us, just come and join the fun, basically. We're here to have fun and make a positive difference in the world of audit. Just a very quick one in terms of, so just to make you aware, we're now doing a new thing. So this is our second, we call it away days. Now what that means is we take time out. So we take a day out. We have regular committee meetings. We meet regularly to talk about, where we're going, what we're doing. We're arranging events, but sometimes it's just good to take a full day out just to break everything down and get into the topics and discussions in the world of audit. We have special guests attend, friends, of the Audit SIG. As you can see, we're here in CQI HQ today doing that. We'll continue to do that because it does provide this opportunity to, become aware of what the challenges are with the wider profession, getting to understand the interactions, spending time together to work out what is it we're needing to work on, prioritize as we move forward. So we are going to have more away days. There'll be another one later this year, and we'll have obviously several next year as well. And it'll continue to help build on the theme that we've discussed today. I am going to look at the chat very briefly and see if there's any Q&A. If anyone's got any questions, let's just have a quick look. I think most of it's apologies. I need to leave. I need to leave. That's fine. I don't think there's any. Yep, the slides will be shared. No problem at all. I don't think there's anything specific. Has anyone online got any questions? Feel free to open up your mic and ask away. If not, we're going to close down the meeting in just a minute. I just want to take a final message to say
sorry,
thank you.
William. This is Rasul from Japan. Good day, everyone. Just a quick question for the autumn away day. Is it days are fixed or not yet?
Not yet. So we'll confirm that very shortly, though, because that's something we spoke about at the recent committee meeting. So yes, we will absolutely confirm that. Expected to be October, November.
Right.
What time is it, Rasul?
Yeah, what time is it, Rasul, in Japan?
It's 9:38. Yeah, evening.
Not too bad. Yeah.
Oh,
right. We have
thank you for joining us.
8 hours time. No, it's my pleasure. And just I take this opportunity to say thank you to Richard. He explained very well. And then just part 5 and part 6 of our article is coming. That's cultural quality and the double-edged sword. It is talking about the history, culture, and modernization, tradition, and contemporary, and takeaway of the all 5 parts that we talk. I mean, all 4 parts that we published by now. This is very interesting, and this is a lot of learning for me. And thank you, everyone. Just like we are doing all together. Thank you, William. Thank you. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Rasul. Thank you. Listen, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for being patient with I need to improve my ability to work with Microsoft Teams. And just want to wish everyone a good day, good afternoon, good evening, and keep safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think I end it from here.